Hi folks, this is Wayne Wu with Keller RiverTown. I've been asked to prepare and present a slideshow with regard to realtor safety. So that's what this is. It's pretty straightforward. I've got some takeaways on the slides marked in red. Any questions, please feel free to contact me directly via email or my cell phone. That information will be at the end of the slideshow. So, what I'll be going over today is some general information with regard to results from a survey that was conducted by the Realtor Safety Task Force in 2016. Then we're going to discuss the main focus of the training materials and presentations that we have been forwarding as a result of the work done by the Safety Task Force, which is Prevention and Escape. I'm going to introduce you to some potential for additional training, and then go over some new tech that we have done some extensive research with and have endorsed through the association. So we'll go right into the survey. One of the most alarming things that we found in the survey, which had about a 10%, a little less than 10% response rate from our membership, was that the vast majority of agents, when meeting their prospective clients for the first time, were choosing the property of interest as a location for the first contact. 42% of agents that were sampled indicated that they met their client for the first time at the property for which the client had interest. This brings up a lot of concerns here. Mainly is the amount of control that we give up by allowing for a lack of identification or confirmation of identification. That puts us at great risk. The other thing to think about too is from a very practical standpoint. Are you wasting your time? Are you showing a house to an individual who may not be qualified to purchase that home, or that may be too much home for them to purchase if they are qualified at some level? So, one of the best things to do with regard to vetting out your clients is right back to that pre-approval letter. And not just asking for the pre-approval letter, but also following up with the information that the pre-approval letter provides. The name of the loan officer, the financial institution that's providing the pre-approval. It's always a great idea to follow up and make calls, and not just to the numbers that are on the actual pre-approval letter, but try to find a back door in there, whether you know somebody at the lender's office, or you do a Google search and you find the specific branch or a branch and ask for that specific person, just to not only verify that the letter is authentic, but that the loan officer actually did write the letter. The next slide focuses on actual agent knowledge of safety procedures, whether they're available and unknown, or just basically the agent has no idea. The majority of agents sampled indicated that they either did not know whether their brokerage had a safety policy in place, or they did know and that knowledge indicated that there was no safety policy. Only about 35% of the sample indicated that there was an actual safety policy in place at the brokerage. We had a question asked of agents regarding whether they had been in a situation in their capacity as an agent where they felt uneasy or feared for their physical safety. And we were really surprised by the magnitude of the response. 40% of the people indicated that in their capacity as a realtor, they felt uneasy or feared for their safety during a contact with a client, or in a situation where they were conducting themselves as an agent. One of the items that I brought forward as a possibility is that this may actually be an underreported number. Because if we think about it, take a step back, we're usually uneasy or have a fear for our safety when we perceive something as being a threat, whether actual or as I said, perceived. Now, if we don't have the knowledge base to perceive a specific behavior as a tell for potential threatening behavior, are we actually giving a appropriate response, or interpreting that information appropriately? So could there be red flags out there that potential clients have demonstrated to us, but because of our lack of knowledge in some of these behaviors or nonverbal forms of body language, that we're not picking up on the potential threats or perceived threats that we may be involved with? So my thought would be that we actually are not picking up on them all. So the basic premise there is that you don't know what to look for. If you don't know what to look for, how do you know when you see it? Another alarming factor was that of those who did indicate that they had a fear for their safety, their physical safety, or had this feeling of unease in their interaction with an individual as a realtor, 60% of those folks did not report the incident to anyone, whether it was their brokerage, to the association, or to the police. What this represents is our ability to communicate and be confident in what we are observing, and then communicate those observations to others in a way that maybe either tracks a potential pattern of behavior of an individual, and or gives agents a little heads up as to trends in activity, or potential threats that are out there with individuals who, let's say, frequent open houses, or are contacting female agents to go see houses in the evening. We really need to step up our ability to communicate with each other and get that information out. 1 in 10 of the respondents of our survey indicated that while working in their capacity as a realtor, they were a victim of a crime. So if you have 100 realtors in a room, 10 of those folks have been the victim of a crime during their career as a realtor. Only 18% of those folks said they did not report the incident. So that's good that we only have approximately 2 in 10 people not reporting it, but that's still something that we have to get out with regard to the sharing of information. And it's not just reporting that crime to the police, but it's then making our brokerage aware of it, and letting the association know so that we can share that information with the rest of our membership. Is there a correlation here? I think there is. It's, when we're a victim of a crime, there's a feeling of obligation, a feeling of, hey, I'm very confident that I was taken advantage of, or something was stolen from me, or maybe I was pushed. It's that much easier for us to make that report. When we're not sure if our observations are accurate, when we don't have that confidence level, a lot of times we don't want to make a big deal out of it for fear of maybe being perceived as foolish by our peers, or B, creating a situation where you maybe have hard feelings with the person you're complaining about. What I say to that is, you really got to trust your gut, and And if something is not right, usually something's not right. If you're feeling the hairs in the back of your neck rise when you're interacting with somebody, that that inherent risk aversion that we have is there, and it stays with us for a reason, and we have to at least talk with somebody else about it to see if what our observations are correct. At the very minimum, trying to get ourselves out of that situation before we find some new observation that is even more threatening. 40% of the respondents of the survey indicated that they carry some type of self-defense device with them while they're working. The most popular item was pepper spray, or OC, followed not too closely, but significantly enough by firearms. So that was really kind of a surprise to me. But pepper spray, firearms, and then we had other types of weapons, and we've heard anything from wasp spray to different chemical concoctions in spray bottles, impact weapons, flashlights, things of that nature, or pocket knives too. So, what are some considerations that we should have with the type of device that we carry? There are a lot, actually. First of all, any application of force using a weapon or a device is a skill, and it needs to be practiced often in order to be efficient with it, in order to be able to use it with effectiveness. We have to make sure we're practicing with it at a frequency that maintains that skill. So that's number one. Number two is we have to make sure that the device we're using, we know how it works, and we know some of the drawbacks to those devices. So pepper spray, for instance, most OC or pepper spray propellants are designed to disperse a large volume of chemical agent at a very high velocity stream. So if you can picture using a garden hose at full volume, standing 3 feet away from a wall, what can sometimes happen if you're spraying that hose at the wall? Whether you got a spray head on it or you're using your thumb or whatever, there's a little bit of blowback that occurs, and that blowback sometimes can hit you in the face. So one of the considerations with pepper spray is you got to know how it works. You got to know what those voluntary and involuntary responses to contact or contamination with that substance is. So with pepper spray, you're going to get an involuntary closing of the eyes. The mucous membranes are going to release. You're going to start having the high volume discharge of mucus out of your nose. You'll be coughing, burning of the face. A lot of discomfort. Difficulty breathing will be another one. So knowing how that works, and maybe having a brief exposure to that in a safe environment will allow you to maintain a degree of composure when you're exposed to that substance in a high anxiety or a highly conflicting environment, when you're potentially rolling around with somebody or about to get into a physical altercation. Your adrenaline's already going to be jacked up. Now think of yourself with your not being able to see and having a hard time breathing. That'll shoot your anxiety up a little bit higher. Having this knowledge or exposure is called stress inoculation. It actually helps you survive incidents like this. With firearms, I think one of the most important things to consider before you buy a firearm is whether you have that capacity as an individual to take someone else's life. Contrary to popular belief and mass media, it's darn near impossible to shoot to wound. Any use of a firearm is interpreted as deadly force by the courts. So having the justification to take somebody's life has to be presumed or has to be established that you had a reasonable fear of death or great bodily harm if you did not take that action. So that's the legal standard with which you can use deadly force. Now, the other consideration is whether you, as an individual, have that emotional and psychological tenacity to actually take someone's life. And it's not just pulling the trigger, it's are you going to be able to live with yourself after you've done that? These are all considerations that need to be thought out and discussed with your significant other and your family before you buy a firearm. And the reason I say that they have to be discussed beforehand is you don't want to be trying to make that decision when you're holding a firearm on somebody who presents a lethal force threat to you. That slows down your decision making, and very possibly, if you're taking that time to think about those very important questions while you're in a confrontation, the person that you're in a confrontation with may take that weapon from you and use it on you. So it's very important you have those conversations with yourself and your significant family and friends before you buy a firearm. And then we have other considerations of how you carry, whether you carry legally concealed, how you unholster or apply these devices, how easy it is, or how difficult it is, depending on how concealed it is. So a lot of questions and a lot of thought needs to go into each one of these things. Prevention and escape. That is our main focus when it comes to any potential threatening interaction with a client or any subject. As realtors, we have no duty to protect the property that we're showing, whether it's at an open house or simply at a showing, taking a new client to a showing. You may be the client that you're taking there, it may be somebody who just happens into the house. So we have no duty to apprehend, we have no duty to protect. Our main duty is to be a good witness, to get out of there. That's what reduces our risk. So kind of a funny slide, Forrest Gump there. Run is the word of the day. It's not cool, it's not sexy, it's not going to give you a story, but if your primary goal is safety, the best thing you can do is get clear of danger. Couldn't be said better. The safety task force was initiated or thought of in the wake of the murder of Beverly Carter. She's a Little Rock broker, very successful by all rights, but had some interaction with a couple, male and female, who she was showing houses to. She had been out with them several times before the incident occurred, but what she did not know was that this couple was targeting her because she was so successful. So the couple abducted her. Their intention was to hold her for a ransom and collect the ransom. I don't know whether they had thought very clearly the method with which they were going to abduct or how they were going to return her, if that was even their intent. But during the course of the crime, she was suffocated and died. Her family knew that she was going to be showing homes. They were not exactly sure where or when it was occurring, but they knew something was wrong when she didn't return that evening. They eventually caught the couple. The gentleman, or the subject, I shouldn't call him gentleman, as he was being walked from the jail to the courtroom for arraignment, one of the reporters who was standing in the alley between the two buildings asked him why Beverly. Without much hesitation and verbatim, the subject indicated she was a rich broker because she was just a woman who worked alone, a rich broker. I don't know how much more needs to be said there. Obviously, this individual had a lot more information on Beverly than Beverly had on him. It's really difficult to discern intent with people. And absent us doing our homework on our potential clients before we get into a car or go into a house with them, I think we're putting ourselves at some great risk. So, what are our recommendations here? First, your mindset is everything. Going into a showing or an open house with your focus on the deal, with your focus on the property and nothing else, will lead to trouble. You're not going to pick up on the red flags that will be out there. You're going to maybe sense a little bit of unease, but you'll keep on moving forward towards the danger rather than stepping back and seeing the whole picture. So having that mindset, you want to have a successful showing, you want to have a successful open house, but you also want to keep a little bit of that awareness available for your situation. What is your situational awareness? What is your environmental awareness with regard to how people are moving around you or how this individual is moving around you? The words they're using, how they're saying it. The nonverbal body language that they may be demonstrating. Are you putting yourself in a position where you can pick those things up rather than ignore them or press those observations down in lieu of making this deal happen, which may not be the intent of the individual at all? Visualize the interaction before it actually occurs. How would you like this interaction to go? How do you want this showing to go? How do you want this open house to go? Best case scenario. When it varies outside of that visualization, that should be your own red flag for, okay, what is potentially going wrong here? What do I need to be doing to make myself safer? Going back to mindset, third bullet point down, don't chase the money at the expense of common sense and safety. One of the things that is said of realtors are very few occupations in the world where you may get a call on a Friday evening from an individual you've never met before, asking you to meet them at a house that you've never been to before at night in the dark, and you will say, sure, I'll do that. There are very few occupations that do that. And the majority of those occupations are armed and have other protective gear and individuals who back them up. So, we can't dispense with common sense when we are working in an environment that's potentially dangerous just because we're focused on success, and that success being specifically money. We have to be successful in how we approach our clients and interact with them, both from a professional and a safety perspective. And that brings us back to that initial observation of listening to your gut. That instinctual feeling of danger and threat has remained with us for a specific reason. It's difficult. Those important functions that we have as human beings, as animals, the important ones stick with us, and that sixth sense or that ability to perceive, with maybe not being able to articulate the reason why, is one of those senses. So, if you have the hair on the back of your neck rise, or if you have that gurgling in your stomach, or just that tingling between your shoulder blades, whatever the case may be, whatever it is that alerts you that something isn't right, don't ignore it. Don't keep on walking forward. That's your clue to stop, take in a broad perspective of what's going on, and really interpret what the situation is before you move forward. It could be something very innocuous or innocent. It could be something that is a red flag for danger, though. So your interactions, we talked about visualizing the interaction, and with regard to that, plan for the worst. What could potentially happen. Set your process up for what if this happens. And you don't have to address every what if, but there are some things that we can do that will be the answer to a lot of what ifs. It's not a one for one kind of a bargain. Some of these things that we do ahead of time can help keep us safe in a very broad perspective. Have a plan established, and we'll get to the specifics of each plan. But whether it's accountability, whether it is how you move with a client through a home. Have that plan established, stick to that plan. If something happens outside of that plan, it's one of those things where you have to steer things back on the path, or you break off and you again take a step back and get that broad perspective. And then with that, be prepared to fight and run at any time. And that preparation is not just the mindset issue, but it's also in how much stuff we're carrying or how we're dressed. So now, as I said at the beginning of the presentation, property means nothing. Your number one duty is to your own safety. You have no legal duty to protect the property that you're showing or holding an open house with. It is strictly your duty to protect yourself and be a great witness. There are very few individuals that I've come across that have successfully subdued and had a knockdown, drag-out fight with an individual, and been able to subdue and hold him or her for police without themselves getting hurt. And it's a very exhausting and daunting task, and very injury prone, and a lot of these injuries take a great deal of time to heal. So best advice is to be a great witness. And again, during these confrontations with individuals, once that sixth sense comes up, once you have determined this isn't right, this interaction is not going the way I want it to, and I'm starting to fear for my safety, you do not comply with the suspect. Things will never get better. The suspect says, for instance, if you get in the car with me, I won't hurt you. That does not sound like a bargain. Come down in the basement and I won't hurt you. If it doesn't sound right, you don't comply. So, part of that plan we talked about was the accountability plan. Consistent interval check-ins with coworkers, friends, or family members. It can be a formal plan or an informal plan. Just have it in place. And what we're essentially saying is there should be somebody who, when you are with a new client or with a client that you've been working with for quite some time, they know who you're with, they know where you're going, they know when you're going to be at location A, and when you should be leaving location A, and when you should be arriving at location B, and when you should be leaving location B, and you should be checking in before and after these showings or appointments to keep your accountability plan in place. So the goal is that if you don't check in, folks kind of know where you're at and where to be looking for you, and that they should be calling you to find out if you're okay. That's what keeps us safe. And then we have again, at the end of this slideshow, we'll talk about some tech that helps us out with this accountability plan. It really does a good job. One thing to understand is that if you're making a 911 call from a cell phone, you may not always get your exact location to the call taker. A couple things have to happen in order for that to occur. First, you got to make sure you have your GPS turned on your phone. If your GPS is not turned on, the best they can do is triangulate between cell towers, and in that we're talking about tens of square miles of area to be looking for you if you're calling 911 and you need help now. It's not going to get there very quickly. Know where you are. The first thing out of your mouth should be your location. And if that's the only thing you can get out, that should be the only thing. First thing out of your mouth, maybe the only thing out of your mouth, especially if you're tangling up with somebody. Get that information out. Keep the line open. Don't hang up after you've given that location or after you have asked for law enforcement to respond. Keep the line open. The information that can be heard between you and a subject, if you're engaging verbally by the call taker, can give responding officers a wealth of information on how to respond or what they may run into once they get there. And if you have a sense about you, give a commentary on all the things you are observing, and that can be done either directly to the call taker or in conversation form with your subject, so as not to alert him that that's what you're doing. Most of the jurisdictions within West Michigan give information to crimemapping.com, so you can get information on assaults, burglaries, homicides, sex crimes, things of that nature within a given neighborhood or area within a specific time frame. So knowing the neighborhood you're going into and what potentially has occurred there recently would be beneficial to you. And this is also a great resource for your clients who ask, is this neighborhood safe? It takes that weight off your shoulders and puts it on this website instead. So crimemapping.com. Do not meet your client at the property for the first time. The best bet is for you to meet them in your office during office hours when people are around. And this can be part of a really good and productive buyer interview or listing interview. It should be part of your process, of your systems. Obtain identification, make a copy of that identification. If you are getting a client over the phone and you believe it to be a legitimate client looking for a home that client is qualified, and maybe you ask them to text a picture of their ID to you so you can take a look at it. Text a picture of the car that they'll be driving. Then do your homework on them. Social media and Google can yield a lot of information when it comes to individuals and what they have been up to, what their perspective is on life, maybe life experiences if they like to share. And then, like we said before, pre-approval is a very valid identification, very, very effective and valid identification confirming tool. So if you do need to meet somebody outside the office, don't go alone. Bring a coworker or a friend. Part of your plan again, wear clothing that does not put you at a tactical disadvantage. So what does this mean? This means that clothing that restricts your movement, your ability to kick or to strike or to run, would be something that you wouldn't wear, because we're not in a necessarily an environment that has rules, that has witnesses, that has people that will intervene if something goes wrong. You need to be wearing clothing that's going to allow you to say, hey, wait a minute, I don't like the way this is going. You need to back up. You have to have that ability to give a good shove, so you can turn around and then run, or to deliver a good A-frame kick or a strike. And then, pockets are a good thing for carrying your keys, your key fob with your car alarm on it, for carrying, your OC if you decide to carry that. Other items, even a pen can be used as a self-defense device. So, but having that pocket where it's easily accessible is a good thing. All right. Some other things to think about is arriving at the property early. Become familiar with the area. You start to begin that environmental or proximity awareness. And then you can figure out also, what is your escape plan? How many exits do I have from this home? How accessible are they? What kind of locks do I need to be aware of? Is it a double cylinder bolt rather than a single cylinder bolt? And if I had to get out the back door, where is the back door and can I get out quickly? Park your vehicle in an advantageous location. The street is best, not blocked in. Driveway is going to be not a good place, especially if you arrive first and the subject pulls in right behind you. Always carry your keys on your person, not in a bag or a purse. Key fobs usually have alarms on them. Most cars have an alarm setting on the fob these days. It's just a good thing to have on your person, so that if you do escape, you're not having to dig through a bag or a purse to find these things. Or if the bag or the purse was the target of the subject who's interacting with you, and that he or she is successful at stealing it from you, your ability to escape via vehicle is gone. Maintain a good reactionary gap and good positioning with the person that you are assisting. And so what is a reactionary gap? So reactionary gap is that amount of distance between you and the individual where, if the individual makes a gesture or a movement that is threatening in nature, you have the ability to observe and recognize the gesture, determine that it is threatening, think of something that you can do to minimize the impact of that gesture towards you, and then execute that plan. So we're talking, a very long description of what is essentially a very short process. So from the time you see something until your ability to react, which is different with people, but on average is right about 2.5, 3 seconds. So putting 2.5 or 3 seconds worth of space between you and the individual that you are dealing with. And it's not a specific amount of room, but it is what do they need to get around or get through in order to get to you. So these are things that you need to think about. Center islands can slow people down. Furniture, couches, chairs, tables, those things are great at increasing that reactionary gap for you. And then know where your exits are as well, because once you get outside, that reactionary gap can increase significantly within a very short period of time. And then know where you're standing with regard to the individual that you are dealing with. What's the most dangerous part of a house? Most people, if they just answer that question from the hip, are going to say the basement. And you're right, it can be the basement, but it's actually any room in that house that restricts your ability to escape. It could be an upstairs bedroom with small windows. It could be a bathroom on the main floor. It's anywhere where you can't get out of quickly. So with that in mind, let your client lead. You are there to observe, to help them in understanding the strengths and weaknesses of the property. You're also there to make sure you can observe what they are doing. Now, while you have no duty to protect the property, That doesn't mean if they are starting to steal or break things that you're not needed to report it. So, you see those things happening. It's when you instruct to quit and you back up and you get out your phone and you start to notify law enforcement. But it's going to be hard for you to do that if you are standing in front of the client. And it's going to be very easy for the client or the individual to strike or kick you with very little reactionary gap and reaction time for you if that person is behind you. Do not put the client or the individual between you and the escape route. Always let them lead, whether it's into a room, into a hallway, or into a basement or upper level, they lead. Open houses. Preferred 2 individuals assisting with open houses. Things to do, again, you're getting there early and prepping, getting a lay of the land, unlock and open doors and windows so that you have that potential escape route if you are cornered. Scope the house out for a good escape plan from different parts of the home. We kind of covered weapons a little bit ago, but make sure you are in compliance with state or federal law if you do decide to carry. Almost anything can be a weapon, whether it is a ballpoint pen or a flashlight or a firearm. Any of those can be used as a weapon, but understand that the actual application of that device in an effective and efficient manner is a skill, so you need to be practicing. Physical presence and appearance communicates volumes to an individual. If you've got your face buried in your phone during an open house, that's going to communicate volumes to a subject whose intent is to rob the place or whose intent is to catch you unaware. Your ability to be aware is your ability to prevent a crime from happening. Have your head up, your observations going so that you can see what is going on around you. You know who's coming and going from the home, and you're able to take appropriate action if you see something that isn't right. Any force action or application of techniques should be simple, easy to learn, and emphasize escape over engagement. So something that is quick, doesn't take a lot of decision or thought process. Application is quick, and then boom, you're gone. So if you need to engage with somebody, you engage to distract or to slow them down, then you leave. And again, application is a skill, so make sure you're practicing. Threat reaction, if at all possible, escape without engagement. Not having to put hands on somebody is always great. Keeps you safe. It keeps you out of, if you make a bad decision, it keeps you out of court as well. So that said, if engagement is necessary, 100% force application intensity. There's no kid gloves. If you are in fear of death or great bodily injury, great bodily harm, you're not going to pull punches. It's 100% intensity. You stick and then you move. Call 911 as soon as you can, but as long as you're not putting yourself at increased jeopardy. So kicking an individual to distract and get away from them, walking 3 feet away, and then calling the police is not a good thing. Get out of the house, get to a safe place, and call the police, whether it's inside your phone or in a neighbor's home. That's what you need to do. Understand the effects of combat stress. One of the things you will feel is an adrenaline dump when you're engaged in a confrontation with somebody, and a lot of people feel that adrenaline dump when they have a near miss accident in their vehicles. That's a lot of people feel an adrenaline dump. They feel that jitteriness, that elevated heart rate, where you're almost hyper aware of what's going on. But with increases in stress, you're also going to have some diminished abilities, whether it's cognitive ability or your ability to think, or your perception to sensory input, your peripheral vision or tunnel vision, auditory exclusion, which is not being able to hear everything. These things are affected with increased stress and increased heart rate. Reduction in fine motor skills, which is essentially your ability to use your fingertips in very detailed and controlled manners. And you're going to get body shakes, and when everything's done, you're going to be exhausted. But a couple things to think about here. With increased stress is going to be increased heart rate, and the previous slide indicated that there are going to be some diminished skill levels and diminished abilities. Some of these things occur rather quickly, especially after about a minute of intense exertion. Your heart rate jacks up just from hormonal adrenaline. After it spikes above 145, whether that is strictly from hormonal influence or a mixture of hormonal and physical exertion, your motor skills, your complex motor skills, are going to begin to deteriorate. Your ability to think is going to deteriorate. You're going to have a vascular constriction of your blood vessels. The body goes into a survival mode where it pulls the blood into the center of the body, so it's going to be more difficult to feel things and to be coordinated on that fine motor level. So keeping yourself in good physical condition is going to reduce these effects as well. Afterward, self-assess for injuries, seek medical attention. That's number one. When you're able to report the encounter to law enforcement, if it's significant enough, it's a possibility that you've already done that via 911, or somebody around you has seen what's going on and has alerted police. But make sure they're coming. And there's no shame in hollering out, call the police, I need help. Advise your brokerage of the incident. And then contact Pam Van Leuven as well to relay your story. It helps us with that information sharing, which is the point of the next bullet. Some of the things that help out with, or that are the result of information sharing, is that it helps identify patterns in suspicious subjects. What are people doing out there? We've had several individuals over this past year who have repeated behaviors at multiple open houses that we've been able to track because folks have been sharing this information. And that helps us with looking out for them and keeping agents safe, because agents know what to look for. Additionally, assist law enforcement from a proactive perspective, because if they know what's going on and the pattern that's occurring, they can be out there looking for it and not just coming when we're calling them after it's occurred. And then, the communication also aids in the prosecution of criminal acts. So, training opportunities. GRAR has partnered with Northern Tactical Development. It's a company out of the Rockford area. The instructors are active duty or retired law enforcement officers, public safety officers, and it is training is a combination of classroom and hands-on. 2 hours of continuing education is offered, and I apologize, my slide still has the old GRAR acronym there, but it is something that I think is very beneficial. These guys are professionals. I have a high amount of respect for them. If you're interested, Brittany Sheets at GRAR can help you out with getting signed up for one of these classes. And then the tech portion. We talked about accountability, and one of the things that the Safety Task Force found as beneficial with regard to accountability in a passive manner is the Wear Safe device. And it is a small fob, which you see on this slide. It's about the size of an old school pedometer, roughly the size of a walnut with a clip on it. It goes on your belt, or it has the ability to be hung from a necklace or put on a keychain, whatever your preference is. but it's a Bluetooth enabled device that partners with your or pairs with your cell phone, your smartphone, and an application that you will download onto your smartphone. The application in its loading and installation requires you to set up a network of individuals who will receive a notification from you if you feel that you are in danger. Now, it's very important that you choose between 3 and 5 individuals in your network, and these 3 to 5 individuals are not folks that if you text them, they're going to get back with you next week. These are folks that if they get an alert from this application, are going to get right on top of it and follow the process that this device and this application tend to. So probably the most important thing you do is select a good network. So you have installed the application, you have the fob paired to your phone. This is how it works. You are showing a home, an individual that you're working with is acting in a way that is contrary to an actual buyer. Let's say it was just a setup, and they're calling you because they have been admiring you from afar for quite some time, and now the language has turned from professional, I'm interested in buying this home, to very personal and scary language of wanting to do something with you or to you. You simply activate the fob either by one button press or 3 quick button presses. There's a number of choices that you have when you set up. But when the fob is activated, the fob causes the application to send out a notification to your network that indicates that the individual, is having an issue that is potentially dangerous. It's called an alert. Your network gets this alert both from a text message and from an activation of the app on their phone, and they are allowed to see where you are, and they also will shortly thereafter receive a WAV file that has been sent by your phone that covers an audio recording of what's occurring around you when you've activated that fob. So it automatically starts recording what's going on around you. So if you are breathing hard and yelling and screaming, that's going to be validation that you need some help. And if they get that validation, they simply press the call 911 button at the top of their phone. 911 is called. The app will provide your GPS location, your coordinates, and law enforcement plugging those coordinates in will be able to get help to you. It doesn't matter where your network is. The coordinates are for you, and if you call, let's say your network member responding is in Rockford, but you're showing a house in Granville, the jurisdiction that gets that 911 call will be able to identify where you are and forward the 911 request to the jurisdiction within which you're showing that home. So it's fairly unobtrusive. It is very, very reliable. It was by far the best product that we found. Very cost effective as well. The Realtor store has it stocked. You can purchase it for $10, and with that $10 you get a free 6-month subscription to the service. Once that subscription has ended, it is I think it's $5 or $6 a month thereafter. Very inexpensive as well. We've tested this and it works very effectively, and it's not just for sale to realtors. I purchased these for friends and family members as well, so very effective. All right, that's pretty much the end of the presentation. It's a lot of information, but it's scary to say not as much information as I could have provided. I just tried to gloss over and give you a rough idea for some ideas and perspectives with regard to realtor safety. But if you have any questions or concerns or comments, please feel free to contact me. My email and phone number are at the bottom of the last slide there. I look forward to helping in any way I can. Again, any questions, give me a call. Thanks for your attention and have a great day. Bye-bye.